Zayin Amid Beis, we began a sugya of what you can use for an Eruv, and we segued into what you can spend your money on Ma'aser Sheni money, right? You can spend Ma'aser Sheni, everything except Mayim Umelach. And we had a machlokus by tzir, by the fish, and then we brought in two limudim. We brought the limud of Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish and Rabbi Laza, and Hani Tanoim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, they darshan the Torah derech riboy omiyit, and we spoke at yesterday that's going to be marba b'chol, and it's going to come to go ahead and be marba even fish, and it's going to exclude mayim u'melach, but seer will be included. Then we had two tanoim that they went ahead and they darshan the pasuk again. V'nasata kesef b'chol shetav nafshecha b'baka u'bayayin u'batzoyin u'bayayin u'bashecha, and they darshan that derech klal pratu klal. According to the first one, we went ahead and said the klal, the prat of bakar, soin, yayin, and sheikha would be something that is pre, a mother from a mother in the Gedulei Karka. And the second one, we said that the same limud, but it was more exclusive because it said it had to be born on the 6th day. It had to come on the 6th day. And we said the nafkamina would be dogim. Dogim are pre. Dogim are fish, the son of fish, the son of fish, the son of fish, right? In addition, they're Gedulei Karka because they eat from the ground. In addition, they're Gedulei Karka because they eat from the ground. And on the other hand, if you're going to darshan the latter pasuk that they had to be created on day number 6, fish were created on day number 5. So in Tanoim, Gufa, you'd have machloikas with fish, the nachmin with fish. Like the first time, you could spend your Ma'aser Sheni money on fish. Like the second time, since fish were created on day number 5 and not day number 6, therefore you would not be able to spend your Ma'aser Sheni money on fish. Good. That's what we're holding. Now we're gonna. I always go over this quickly, but I decided to do it correctly. So let me give you an idea of an interesting linguist. The first time we had this is in Masechta Makos. In Masechta Makos, what happens if you eat a sheretz from the mayim, a sheretz from the earth, or a tzira? So listen to this. You have the front here. I gave you the pesukim. A patisa is a small sheretz that lives in the water. You be chayiv 4 malchus, fellas. 4 malchus. I put the pesukim on the board. This is where I usually don't do it. The first one is the pasuk. It says this is unique to mayim, guys. This is unique to sheretz hamayim. It says mipsaram, from their flesh, lo sochelu, you can't eat.
Lazy,
that's one lav.
You want to shrink it a little bit so we can, yeah.
So the sheretz mayim mipsaram lo sochelu. The second pasuk is chol she'ein lo snapir v'kaskeses. Anything that doesn't have fins or scales, lo sochelu. So obviously these are unique to something that lives in the water. However, there are 2 general psukim that apply to shratzim. One is al tishaksu es nafsho seichem, do not disgust your nefesh by eating something disgusting, and v'leisutamu behem, and don't go ahead and make yourself tummy in them. So 3 and 4, malchus 3 and 4 are a general term by all shratzim. So if you eat a potisa, you be chayiv 4 malchus, 2 unique to sheretz hamayim and 2 universal shratzim. What about if you eat an ant? A namala, you eat an ant. By the way, that's why when they came out with this filter for the water after the shiloh of the years, and I was so happy to put a filter on. You don't realize, you eat this little sheretz, it's worse than eating a piece of chazer. It's worse than eating an avela. You don't see it as such because it's not something that you've been malumed in. But if you eat a water bug, you're over chayiv 4 malchus. A sheretz ha'oif. Now, what about a sheretz ha'oif? An ant, you be chayiv 5. Again, the first 2 would be 3 and 4. That's the general term. I put 1 and 2 is the same as 3 and 4, right, guys? This is al tishaksu and v'leisatamu behem. Then you have 3, 4, and 5. You have chol holech al gochon, anything that goes on its stomach. L'chol hasheretz al haaretz lo sochelu. That's 1. L'chol hasheretz. I can't. L'chol ha what? Let me see what I write there. L'chol b'sarcha sheketzu lo yochal. All it's basarcha sheketz, you should eat it. And finally, tam was nafshasechem mikol sheretz. So these are 3, 4, and 5 unique to a sheretz haaretz. So again, there's a 1, 3, and 4 are universal to all shvatzim. After shatz nafshasechem, blessed tamu. Sheretz amayim an additional 2. Sheretz ha'if an additional 3. And those are the 3 pesukim. So 3 and 2 are 5. The 2 general terms, 3 and 4, and you have over here.
1 is 5 unique. 1 plus 5 unique to when?
It says b'chol sheretz. Like said tam was nashasechem b'chol sheretz. B'chula. I wrote b'chula. It means sheretz on the aretz. Now a tzira, guys, you'd have all these 5, the 2 general ones, the 3 that are unique to sheretz aretz, and 1 unique to sheretz oif, a flying sheretz. So if you eat a hornet or a bee, you probably would be chayiv 6. You'd be chayiv 5 plus 1. These 5 plus 1, you'd be chayiv 6. Fred the Gemara Kasha, if you're going to tell me that a potisa is gadol from haaretz, guys, you should be chayiv 7. Look at the chart. 2 for sheretz ha'oif, and the other 5 for what? Again, it's gadol min haaretz. So every sheretz hamayim should be a sheretz ha'oif. So you should have 5, and these 2 would be 7. Again, 5 for sheretz haaretz, 2 for sheretz hamayim gives you a total of 7. That's the Gemara's kasha. Okay.
Rabbi, one question: where's the sheretz ha'oif over here? I see sheretz hamayim. I see sheretz haaretz.
The middle one, a sheretz ha'oif, is the bottom one. It's sira, the bottom one.
How come that's called a sheretz haaretz as well?
Huh? Because sheretz ha'oif sheretz ha'oif lives on the land as well. It has the capacity of flight. Okay, so now welcome back, Baruch.
What daf are we on?
We're about to begin Chav Ches.
Chav Ches. And what time do we start tonight?
8 o'clock. We started the pregame show at 8 o'clock. We started telling at 8:05. We gave a few psukim. You did not miss anything. And your father should have been telling you things, and he's hiding behind the kaisel over there, but your father should have been telling you exactly what time we start. There's no excuse for that. Instead of posting 3-year-old chats of Lou 1,000 pounds heavier in Dubai and saying that you're telling us something. I'm glad you muted because I don't want to hear any Narishkeit. Okay, says the Gemara. Umi Amar Abaya Dogim Gedoyle Karkaninu. Does Abaya say that Dogim are considered Gedoyle Karka? You're telling me that they consider that they nurture from the ground. So Amar Abaya, Amin Aleph, Achel Potisa. Now it's going to go get geschmiert, guys. If you eat the sheretz cotton that lives in the water, like a arba, the michayev 4, 2 for the 2 halachas that are unique to sheretz hamayim, and 2 for the general term by all shvatzim. Nemala, like a chamesh, 2 general, 3 for sheretz haaretz. Sira, like a sheish, the 5 for the 2 general, the 3 for sheretz haaretz, and the additional for sheretz ha'if. The im isa, if you're going to tell me that potisa is the fish eats from the ground, right? Nami lilke mishum sheretz al aretz. In addition, you should get malchus for sheretz al aretz. Guys, sheretz al aretz is a 5. Sheretz hamayim is 2. Says Rashi, you be chayiv 7, and we said you only chayiv 4. So therefore, you can't consider fish as gedulei aretz. How are we doing? Great. So now, guys, now we have to look for a nafkamina between the 2 people who darshan the klal uprat a different way. Everyone look at me, please. We said yesterday, there was ribui miyut, that was 1. Then there was klal pratu klal. Klal pratu klal, we had 2 different opinions. One that extrapolated from baka, soin, yayin, and sheikha, that it's pira, it's a p from a p, and it's gedulei aretz. And another one that added is born on the 6th day, that it comes from the ground, that's nurtured from the ground. Wow, now that you've gone ahead and told me fish are not considered gedulei aretz, what's the halachic difference between the 2 lashonos? That's what we want to know. And for Gemara, birds. Birds are the difference. Can you spend your Maisa Sheni money on birds? Can you, on fowl, poultry, can you spend your Maisa Sheni, says the Gemara. Lemanda Omar, pre v'gedule karka, that what is the common denominator between bakar, son, yayin, v'shecher, is that they come from a mother and they grow from the ground. Hani nami geduli karkininu. They also feed from the ground. Fish, birds feed from the ground. Lemanda Omar vlodois haaretz, they had to be created on day 6. Hani oifis min rakak nivru. They were created from the rakak. They were created from mud on day number 5. So l'chayra they are what? They are not included in the Ma'aser Sheni. You could not spend your Ma'aser Sheni money on birds. Like the second side of the klal pratu klal, that we're adding this additional concept what of vlad that they were created from the ground, they're not included. Okay, guys, you have, look at my fingers. You have a klal pratu klal. There's 2 ways to learn this. This is very, very strange because this is a very strange Gemara. It's very, very different. Usually, here's the following. You have a klal, and then you have the prat. Klal or prat. A bechlal, there's nothing in the klal except what's in the prat. There's another limud. There's a limud called a prat klal. First you have the prat, the specific, and then you have the klal. So, if you have the specific, that's the only game in town, comes along the prat, and that includes everything. Comes along the first prat and limits it. In other words, do you darshan the following 1, 2, 3, or do you darshan it 2, 3, 1? Which klal is the first klal? The latter klal or the previous klal? What's the difference? If it's the latter klal, it's going to include more things. If it's the first klal, it's going to include less things. Says the Gemara. Uman de mayit oifos. Man de marbe oifis, my timer, the one who includes oifis in Ma'aser Sheni money, what's the reason? Uman de mayit oifis, my timer, and the one that excludes it, what's the reason? Man de marbe oifis ksavar klola basra dafka. It's the last klal that's dafka. Prat and the prat for klal. So now you have a prat, then you have the klal. Nasa klal moisav ala prat. The latter klal adds on to the prat. So we have bucket son yayin v'shecher. That's the prat. That's the only game in town that you could spend your Ma'aser Sheni on. Comes on the klal afterwards to add on to it. It's Rabbi who kol mili, and now you can buy anything. You can buy anything with based upon that. V'ahani kol kama. Now comes the first klal. V'nasata kesef b'chol tzir tav nafshecha l'meute kol deloi damile mishneit stadim. That can comparable in 2 ways. And what are the 2 ways? Peri, gedulim and aretz. So therefore, what? You're going to be marba oifis. Because oifis are what? They're similar in 2 ways. So therefore, guys, you went from 4 specifics to everything to minimize the everything by the first klal. So therefore, anything that's similar in 2 ways to the first, to the prat would be good. What's the similarity? Pira, it's got a mother. A chicken's got a mother. Gedulei Oretz, the chicken goes ahead, eats from the ground. It's included in your Ma'aser Sheni money. However, if you darshan the following way, klal, everything's in the ballpark. Prat, those 4 things, only those 4 things, and then the third klal, you're going to be mamayit. Therefore, you're going to need the extra concept of what? Being born on the 6th day. Birds came from the 5th day or by mud. Therefore, they're not included. Let's do that inside. And the one that excludes ofos from your Ma'aser Sheni money, Kesava klola kama dafka. It's the first klal that comes. That's dafka, not the latter. Therefore, you're going to darshan it the following way. Klal, everything's in the ballpark. Prat, the only thing that's in the ballpark is those 4. Only those 4 things. Baka, soy, nyayin, b'shecha. Hani in midiachrin aloi. Hani klal brasa comes a klal brasa to create the commonality. Right? L'rebuye kol the domile mishleiset sudden. 3 sides. What are the 3 sides? 1, peri. 2, gedulei aretz. 3, vlod aretz. Therefore, since birds are not vlod aretz, they don't come from the ground, they're not included in the ability to spend your Ma'aser Sheni money on it. End of limud. Beautiful. Okay, the rest of the Gemara is like very funny. We're speaking about Eruvin, about what foods are Eruvin. We're speaking about a lot of different type of vegetables, which I have no idea what they are. But I do know how to learn piece of Gemara, and I will. So in other words, we're going to say some very strange Aramaic terms, Yehuda Horowitz is going to tell me either he knows what they are or he doesn't know what they are, right? Of course, they're very strange terms. I mean, I don't even think, they don't even ask this on Jeopardy. I'm telling you, it's not possible. So, as we're going to see. Amr Yehuda Mishmei Rav Shmuel Bashilas. Again, Rav Shmuel Bashilas is a very famous Rebbe. He was a Malamid Tinoikis. So, Yehuda says the name of Shmuel Bashilas, Mishmei Rav, Ma'arvin Pa'apuin. You can make an Erev using Pa'apuin. Now, it's a yerek that is called Kukli. They used to play linebacker, Luke Kuechly. I think he played linebacker and retired recently, right? That's what it looks like, Luke Kuechly. Ubechadloiglois and Chadloiglois of Chadloiglois, okay? And Ube Gudgonios, right? You can use all of these as an Erev. These are all foods. Avaloi bechazis, green grain you can't use. You cannot use grunkern. Grunkern would not be permitted to be used as a meichel. Grunkern.
Oh, Raya, it's not a Michael.
Now, so
Rebbe is not listening.
okay. So now you're saying okay. Loy bechazis. Bechazis is a green. It's not zon. For loy bekafnoinios, not dates that are not ripe. Fred the Gemara, Arvin, could you go ahead and use Gudgonios as an area for Tanya? Gudgonios merube banim yochlu. If a person has a lot of children, they can eat Gudgonios. This goes ahead and does not help your ability to procreate. Someone who does not have children, lo yacheli, you shouldn't eat it. Vim hukshu lezera, and if it becomes hard like a zera, like a seed, ach merube banim lo yachelu. Even if you have a lot of children, do not eat it. Bottom line is, you see, it's not something that's good. If it's not something that's good, how can Rav say you can use it for an Erev? Obviously, it's not something that's positive. Says Gemara, Tirgemu, go ahead and Targim. That what are we speaking about? Ashloi hukshu. Before it became hard, it was still soft. Lezeraf and weroiv bonim. So a person has a lot of children and it's still soft. You can use it as an Erev. One possibility. Iba is saying even someone who does not have a lot of children can eat it. Why? You can use it as an Erev. The chazi lemerube begodim, the merube bonim, merube bonim. One has a lot of sons. Be like tanan ma'arvin lenazir b'yayin and b'yisrael b'truma. Al ma'afgav lechazi l'hai chazi l'hai. Achanam yafgav lechazi l'hai chazi l'hai. So you're telling me the following. You're telling me a person who doesn't have children should not eat this because it's going to be difficult for him to have children. So the bottom line is, a nazir is not allowed to drink wine. Yet we saw you can go ahead and use it. Zor is not allowed to eat truma. We said you can use it. So who had been that summons chusei bonim, even though you can't eat it, you can use it for an Erev. Why? Because the person who has a lot of children can eat it. So that's a dinner of food. Everybody saying kika amarav the hankuki madai. We're speaking about the hankuki madai type. It came from madai, and that's a very good one. Mashen came the chazas that we're speaking about over here is not so good. It says in the chazas law you can't use green grain. He said you can't use green grain as an Erev. Why not? For Amrav Yehuda Amarav kishus. That's hops. The chazas. And chassis is again this green grain. Ma'arvim behem. In fact, you could use them as an erev. Umevarch malayim boy priyadama, and you make a boy priyadama. Kasha, you see that chassis you could use an erev. It says like kasha is not a problem. Hamakami dasirav lebavel, hadlabasa dasirav lebavel. Before he came to Bavel, and people did not eat it in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore you could use it as an erev. He came to Bavel, and Rav saw the people ingesting chassis. He said, "Guess what? You can use it as an erev because in Bavel they eat it." I don't understand. You go to a place and they eat a weird food, correct? You can go ahead and say it's a food just because they eat it. You go to Thailand, they eat fried tarantulas. You can tell me tarantulas are food? You go after Rabbi. Most of the people do not eat tarantulas. They don't eat it. Not on a stick, not on a plate. They don't eat it. It's not that's not something that's geschmack. I shouldn't say I didn't know it, but Yehudi just left.
I thought you were going to break into green eggs and ham. Not on a plate, not on a stick, not on a...
No. Anyway, says
where's Maish?
What?
Where's Maish?
Sitting right here.
Oh yeah, Maish.
he's live in living color. My son went to Thailand, and he went in the shuk. He have a video with fried tarantulas and scorpions and the guy centipedes, and the guy's trying to give it to him, and he says to him, "Not in this Gilgal." Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So he says, so Fred the Gemara Kasha, just because they eat it in Bavel, why would Rav go ahead and say you can use this in Erev? That it's a food. So again, a place eats a food doesn't make it normal. Vatanya, and I'll prove to you. Hapul v'asoira v'hatilsin is fenugreek. Shezarim liyerek. If you plant it for a yerek, but l'daitel eitzu kol adam lefika zerach hayam v'yorkim. Most of these things, pul, soira, and tilsin, they're made for their seeds. So why do you you didn't plant it for your seeds. You planted it as a vegetable. We say bottle daitel eitzu adam. You go after Roiv of the world, and Roiv of the world uses for seeds. So the seeds are chayv and ma'isa, not the yerek. So you still go after Roiv. So why does Rab go after Roiv and Bavel? Continues the Tosefta. Hashachlayim Kres by Gargar, I think is the Taish, the rocket plant. Shez Zoran Yerek that you planted for Yerek. This is used to both. Ma'asrin Yerek v'zera, you can be Ma'asrin the Yerek and the Zera. And however, Zoran Zera, if you planted for Zera, Masasrin Zera Yerek. Either way, you could. Bottom line is, we see that you go after Rav in the world. So just because in Bavel they began eating chazis, why would Rav change his psak and say you could use it as an Eruv? Either eat it in Bavel, who cares? Mach choice. And for the Gemara,
why can't you just say it's good in Bavel and that's it? You
we go after the world, the Jews.
No, I understand that, but the Jews in Bavel can use it for an Eruv.
Again, Rav gave a psak for the whole world, not just for Jews in Bavel. He gave a universal psak. We don't pass with tzvad and meya. We don't. Again, you may not eat grasshoppers because you don't have Masorah on grasshoppers. But once upon a time you could. And the people, the Jews in Yemen, they had Adam Masorah. They still eat it. But again, there's a universal psak. You can't use, this is a din on Eruv. You can either use it or not use it. You can't say bubble that you use it, you can't. As the Gemara, dan gun naisa zera. We're speaking about gadnusa. Stop. It's some type of a gazis that they grow in a gina that everyone says you could eat. So that in Bavel, they were not eating the Israeli chazis, which are not an Eruv. It was a type of food you could eat. Zera garga, that's the lamai chazi. We said that you can use that, you take meiser off that. What can you use it for? It seems to be very sharp. So Rabbi Yochanan Shekain was showing them that earlier people, they didn't have any peppers. They would go ahead and take this garga, this rocket plant, and they would go ahead and grind it up, and they would use it for a dip for what their broiled food. Rabbi Zera ki avichalish migirsa, and Rabbi Zera got tired from his girsa. What would he do? He would go and sit by the yeshiva of Yehuda Barami. Omar, he would say, let me get up, be Mekam Vadat Nizakim, be Kababu Igra and get schar. So Nafik Osa Yenuka, the Beirav, came out a little child. Amalei, Marcha, Ramcha, what did your Rebbe teach you today? Amalei told me the following. Kishus, the bracha that you make on Kishus. Kishus is haps. Boire Pri Adama. You make what on that? You make a Boire Pri Adama. Chazis Shahakon Yedvarai. Now, Pashtus, you're making a Shahakon Chazis is because it's not getting its nutrients from the ground, it's getting its nutrients from the air. Like we said, mushrooms and truffles, you make a shahakal on because they grow from the air. They get the nutrients from the air, even though they're attached to the ground. They get the nutrients from the air, you make a shahakal. So this with chazis, you make a shahakal, kishus, you make adam. That's what he told me. Amalei, so Reb Zera said to him, Adrabah, Ibchim Istabra, Haime Arakam Arba, right? Kishus gets its nutrients from the air, from the ground, and v'haime avir kamarba. So it should be the opposite. You should make a shahakal on kishus and a adam on chazis. Says the Gemara, despite Rav Zera's protest, the halacha is what like. The halacha is like the Yinuka Dvei Rav. The halacha is like what the child. My kaima, high gemar pri. This is its complete pri. That's the complete form. The high lav gemar pri. Says Rashi, Kishus Gemar Pri, Vinikra Peri. Kishus, you make a Bari Pri Adama because that's considered its Gemar Pri, even if you think it gets nutrients from the air. And Masha'en King Chazis is not complete. You see that you should make a Shahakal since it gets, I don't care, good it's a Gemar Pri, but it still gets its nutrients from the air. On that. Kishus nami mi arakarabi. Haps also they get that nutrients from the ground. What's the raya? The chazina the katlina leila his masa. The hops would grow among thorns. If you go ahead and cut the thorn, mesa kashusa, the kishus would die. So if it's getting its nutrients from the air, it should make a difference whether you cut off its source. Elamam, when you see you cut off the thorn and it dies, the rye, you see a rye that's getting its nutrients from the ground. Now, we said on the Yom and Aleph that Rav said you cannot make an Eruv with kapunyos. Kapunyos were figs that weren't ripe. So kapunyos ema arvin. Is it true that you can't go ahead and make an Eruv with kapunyos? But Tanya, kar seems to be, look at Rashi, guys. We'll get an idea. Kar, 4 lines down. Dava rach hanoisef ala dekel b'chol shana. It's a soft material that adds onto the dekel every year. The koidim sheyagiu yemos hagshomim, before the winter comes, the iskasha and it gets hard. The yasa eitz korele kor. The toiv l'meichel. It's good to eat. This is called hearts of palm. This is why it's known in the trade as hearts of palm. Okay, so we had this Gemara in brachas. When we discuss it, we'll discuss the bracha, what bracha you make on hearts of palm, and the sugya, whether you can use it as an erev or not. So now, kapunya say Merava Tanya, kar, hearts of palm, nikach bekesef maisa. You could use your kesef maisa sheni on it. It's considered a food. Ve'ein mitama tumas eichlin. However, very interestingly enough, it's not mitama, even though you can spend your maisa sheni money on it. Since eventually it's going to become hard, it's not going to go ahead and be mitama tumas eichlin. Right? Kuponyos nikach bekesef maisa. There's your kasha, guys. Right? The kasha is going to be, if I can spend my kesef maisa money on it, why can't I use it as an erev? We said yesterday it's more of a svara to say something's a meichel if you could spend your maisa sheni money on it. So if I can spend my maisa sheni money on it, why can't I use it as an erev? So it doesn't say you can't make an erev, but we're extrapolating by the fact that I can use my maisa sheni money on it. It's considered a foodstuff. If it's a foodstuff, I should be able to use it as an erev. So how can Rav say on the Omer Aleph I can't? Umetamayas tumas leiflin. Rabbi Yehuda, amen. Kor harihu ke'etz. Pashas is saying like the Tanakama. Kor is like eitz, and therefore what? And therefore, however, l'chol dvarav elishnika b'chesed ma'isa. The kapunyas harihin kipri l'chol devrayim. So you have a kasha on Rav. At the end of this price, guys, you have a kasha on Rav. Rav said on the Yom Aleph, dates that are not ripe, you can't use for what? For an erev. But when I see I can spend my ma'isa sheni money on it, I should be able to use it as an erev. Ella, what do you have to say? Shepeturis min ha'mais. No, excuse me. That's part of the kasha. Shepeturis min ha'maisa. And for the Gemara, chasam b'nischani. Over there, it's speaking b'nischani. Let's see Rashi. Says Rashi, because look the Heilige Rashi. Chasam diktani b'tameos. Over there in the Brisa, where we said that the Kaponios and Matamatum Leichlin is speaking b'nischani. The kolim zecharim, male palm trees. Sha'oisin kapunyos, they make these dates. Ve'ena nasem tamarim la'olam, they'll always remain that way. Ukapunyos hu gemar piron, and therefore it's gemar pri. For like the Nisa b'nissen, they would go ahead and gather them in Nisan. V'hanu uchlininu, it's a food. The chikama Rav, when Rav said on the Yom Aleph, you cannot go ahead and use kapunyos. It's speaking with the kolim the kevos, female dates, palms. Shekapunyas shalehem nasim tamarim. Their unripened dates will grow up into full dates. There is a very interesting, there's a Mishnah somewhere where I don't remember, they used to go ahead, you would graft, it seems they're male palms and female palms, and they would graft pieces on. The male palm dates are complete, even when they look incomplete. It's Gamat Pri. But on this Omi base over here, when he said it's Tamatum Eichlin, and you can go ahead and spend your Maisa Sheni money on it, it's speaking about the male date. That's Gamat Pri, that's its finished product. When Rabbi said on the Omer Aleph, you cannot go ahead and make it Erev, it's speaking about the female date. It's in an unripened state, and it could go to a farther state. And therefore, since it's not a Gamat Pri, you cannot go ahead and make an Erev out of it. It seems they're edible, but it seems they're bitter. Yeah, it seems not good. Says the Gemara, so Hassam bin Aschani, that's speaking about male dates. Yihachi, Bahol, Lema, Rabbi Yehuda, Baturas min Amaisa. Why would Rabbi Yehuda say, again, in the extension of the Brisa that we just said, and we said that Brisa is speaking about the male date, why would Rabbi Yehuda say the male date is not Chayiv in Maisa? But Tanyam Rabbi Yehuda, this is the Amar Rabbi Yehuda, like Huskru Pagib Beisanis, we did not mention Pagib Beisanis, that's the unripe figs. El Inyan Maisa Bovad. Pagib Beisanis, the Ahani Tuvyani, those are Kaponias Charim, Ahini Tuvyani are male dates, Chayav in Maisa. So you see, you are Chayiv in Maisa. So question, you told me the Brisa that you could use as an Erev and you could spend your Maisa Sheni money on it, is speaking about what? It's speaking about male dates. And then Rabbi Yehuda says, you put from Maisa, we see over here male dates, Yechayiv Maisa. It's not speaking about Nischani. So if that's not speaking about male dates, we go back to our original question. Why in the Amar Aleph does Rab say, I can't make an Erev out of Kampanyos? And why over here, can you spend your Maisa Sheni money on Kampanyos? You know, it's Hava Hatalia. One is dependent on the other. If I could spend my Maisa Sheni money on it, I should be able to use it as an Erev. So that's my problem. In other words, I get back to the original question. Regarding Tumas Eichlin, it's different. Since you can go ahead and if you use fire, you can go ahead and complete them and make them sweet. And therefore, what you can be mitaking them al yedei or, and therefore, what they're I guess you can buy the kesef maisa because they are possible to go ahead and eat. Let's see Rashi. Ahini hinkaponios. Those are the unripened dates. V'hanech de tuvina kulam secharim hen. Tackle all males. When we shemhachi chayavim b'maisa. Here's why you chayav b'maisa. The gemar piruhu, because it's considered its complete pre. The kol shkein the gemar piruhu l'shar mili, and certainly it's committed gemar pre linyan maisa l'inyan erev. Why? Because you can sweeten them up. So guys, it comes out very geshmat. The Bryce over here is speaking about dates that are unripe that you can go ahead and sweeten up, and therefore you can use them for Maisa. You can spend your Maisa Sheni money on it, and therefore why it would be good for an Erev. On the Amid Aleph, it's speaking about the females, which are you can heat them up as much as you want. They're not going to taste very good, and therefore why you can't use them as an Erev. Where do you see this thing about sweetening it up? So it says the Gemara, Hoyel v'yachum v'takma yidar where do we learn Rabbi Yochanan's din if you that you can go ahead and sweeten something al yedei or that it's considered a gemar pri? Ahad Tanya shkedim hamarim. You have bitter almonds. Kitanim chayavim in meiser gedolim peturim. Mitukim gedolim chayavim. If they're sweet, then gedolim chayavim kitanim peturim. Both are pater. Both chayev. I'm going to go fast because I'm going to get to the punchline. Since they're bitter, they are. Since you can go ahead and be metakamali they are, even though they're bitter now, since you can go ahead and sweeten them, therefore they're chayiv and ma'aser. Amamar, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kur, hearts of palms, haryuke eitz, l'chol devarav. It's like an eitz. Okay, Fred the Gemara, el shenikach mekesa ma'aser. Hang with Tanakama. Tanakama said the same thing. Guys, look above. First time we see kur. Says the Gemara, kur, nikach mekesa ma'aser, ve'im mitamatum esaychlan. Correct? Rabbi Yehuda seems to say the same thing. It's like eitz, but you can go ahead and spend your ma'aser sheni money on it. So apparently he's saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Amabaya sholku v'tignu ikibinayu. The difference is whether you can cook them or fry them. Rabbi Yehuda was very expressive. He didn't say that they're not food. He said that it's considered eitz. It's considered eitz. So in Mela, no matter what you do for it, it's considered eitz. So whether you cook it or not, you're going to be potter from Maisa. Masha Einkein, the Tanakama, if you go ahead and cook it, or if you go ahead and fry it, it'll be considered an oichel, says the Gemara. Maskal Ravava, mi'ikal amanda Omar, shulku b'tignu loy, would you possibly say that Rabbi Yehuda would say if you cook it and or fry it, it will not be chayiv? But Tanya, ha'or v'hashilya, ein mitama tumas eichlin. The or and the shilya is the afterbirth, is not mitama tumas eichlin. Or shesholku b'shilya shechishav lei mitama tumas eichlin. An or that you overcooked, a shilya that you thought about is mitama tumas eichlin. So again, it's not speaking, I made a mistake, linyan maisa, it's speaking linyan tuma. For l'chayra, how can you tell me the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama? The difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama, guys, is whether you cook it or not. That Rabbi Yehuda says it's an eitz, and therefore you can't cook it. And the Tanakama says, what? You could. Even like Rabbi Yehuda, if you cook it, it should be mitama tumas eichlin, even though he calls it an eitz. So back to the original question, what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama? They both say the same thing, that it's not mitama tumas eichlin, and you can spend your ma'aser sheni money on hearts of palm. Okay, that's the shaila. According to Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama, what's the halachic difference between Hatzapam? Apparently, both are saying the same thing. You can't spend your money on it for Ma'aser Sheni, and it's not considered, it's not Matamat Masayflin. So what's the difference? You can't tell me cooking it or frying it, because Rabbi Yehuda also be moed if you cook and fry it. That's Matamat Masayflin. Good? Says the Gemara, so what's the difference? And for the Gemara, it could be not, so Elamarova, it could be not a bracha. The difference is the bracha, the itmar. Kor Rabbi Yehuda Omer, that Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, boire pri adama. You make on this is a big shiloh. What do you make on Hatzapam? Make a boire pri adama. Shmuel Omer shakol yebivaroi. On Hatzapam, you make a shahakol. Rabbi Yehuda Omer boire pri adama uchlu, it's considered an eichel. Shmuel Omer shakol yebivaroi. Kimin shesofa lahaksha. Since the end, it's going to be a piece of wood. Loimer rachina lavi boire pri adama. Amar Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda shinana sharp one. Kavasef mistaba, like you, it's mistaba that you make a bari pri adama. The hot snoin radish shesoifel at hakshleis. In the end, it's going to get hard. Umarachina la bari pri adama. We make a bari pri adama radish. So too, parts of palm, which will get hard in the end, we make a bari pri adama. Veloihi, it's not true. Snoin not the inshi adai the pugla. When you plant it snoin, you plant it for that pugla. You plant it for when it's in that state. Dikla, loy not the inchi adaited the kura. When you plant a palm tree, it's not for the hearts of palm. Even though Shmuel praised Rabbi Yehuda, Hilchos Agavasi to Shmuel that you make a shahakal on parts of palm. I don't know what bracha. I don't know what bracha you make on hearts of palm. I never eat it. This man I said, does anyone know what the bracha is? Yeah. Does anyone know what the halacha is on hearts of palm?
I've seen both shahakal and I've seen adama. I make a shahakal.
I have a book here. I have a book here. Hang on for 1 second. I'll tell you.